Hi everyone. If you missed my lesson or need a refresher, this video is going to be for you. This goes along with our Monday math for September 21st. And today we're going to be talking about rounding. Rounding is a math term that we use to figure out which 10 a number is closer to. So if you know how to skip count by tens, we're going to start by talking about that. 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. So when we're rounding, we're trying to figure out which one of these numbers, because they're each worth a certain amount of tens, a number is closest to. So what we're going to do is, I have this question. How can I round 67 to the nearest 10? So I'm going to be looking at this number 67, and I'm going to figure out which one of these tens 67 is going to round to, which 10 it's the closest to. By doing this, the first thing that you need to do is we're going to draw a number line. So I've drawn my number line down here in red, okay? And I'm going to need a tick mark for a couple parts of my number line. So I'm going to need to have a tick mark at the start of my number line, and I'm going to need to have a tick mark, and I'll have to move this out of the way, a tick mark at the other end of my number line, okay? These tick marks is going to be my starting tick mark and my end tick mark. Now, what I have to do is I need to think about, okay, 67. I need to first think about which two tens 67 is in between. So, is 67 in between 0 and 10? Well, that would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I do not hear the number 67. Then you'd have to ask yourself, okay, is it in between 10 and 20? Well, I know 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I didn't hear 67. But when I say the number 67, I actually hear a 10, one of these choices here. I actually hear 60 in the number 67. So I'm going to check between 60 and 70. I'm going to count 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70. So I did hear 67 in there. So I now know that my first 10 that I'm going to use to round is going to be 67. So, I'm 60. So I'm going to put 60 as my first tick mark because that's the first 10 I hear, 67. Now I'm going to look at the 10 that comes right after it. Okay, so what comes right after 60? 70. So then I'm going to use mine again. Oops. I'm going to have to figure out that by putting a 70 there. Okay, so now I know my number is between 60 and 70, 67. Another point that's important to make on every number line we're going to use for rounding is we're going to make a middle tick mark. And I'm going to use a blue to show a middle tick mark. So I'm going to make my middle tick mark about halfway in between the two. Okay, and if it doesn't look like it's halfway, I'm just going to scooch it over just a pinch to make it look halfway. Okay, so I'm going to think about which number comes halfway between 60 and 70. Well, I know that there's 10 jumps. If there's imaginary jumps, if I would count, I would have to count 61, 62, 63, and I would have to count all the way to 70. I know that there would be like 10 jumps. So I know if there's 10 jumps, half of 10 would be 5. So I'm going to pretend to make 5 jumps in my head, and each one's worth 1. So 61, 62, 63, 64, 65. So 65 would be halfway between 60 and 70. Now that we have that, and let me make sure this goes right under the tick mark so we know. Now I need to think about where would 67 be? So would 67 come before 65 or would it come after? So again, I could think about counting using my imaginary jumps and go 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65. I haven't heard 67 yet. 65, 66, 67. Oh, so 67 would be about here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a little point going to make my dot right here. So that's going to be about where 67 is. Okay, and I'm going to make that thin again. And I'm going to label that 67. Now remember, the question asks, how can I round 67 to the nearest 10? So I'm trying to figure out, is it closer to 60 or is it closer to 70? Now to do this, whatever 10 it's closest to, it'd be closer in direction of it. So 67, if I were to go to 60, that'd be really, really far away from this point. 70 is actually pretty close to 67. So in math, we would say that the 67 rounds to the closer 10. And for this example, 70 would be our closer 10. So we could say 67 rounds to 70.